Romper bumper, bumper boo. Tell me, tell me, tell me do. Tell me, tell me today. Did all my friends have fun at play? I see Jason. And Fitzsimmons, the dude from the subway, how awkward. Anyway, I'd like to welcome you to Albright Television today, where we get the privilege to speak with Carl Ruckteschell, who's done a lot of amazing things in his life with costumes and acrobats. So we get to ask him a lot of wonder questions right here under the sea. Actually, we're not doing this under the sea. I just said that because I just found this new app. But anyway, let's go speak to Carl. Hey, Carl. How's it going?
Well, hi there.
Thank you for joining me today here at Albright Television. So one of the things I wanted to ask you about specifically is you've done so much work with all of these kids and costumes and everything. So I just wanted to ask you about some of the shows that you've been in and how those costumes and how those designs basically affected the audience and how you felt about it, like when you got to see like your work in progress. So one of the shows I want to ask you about first would be You're a Good Man, Charlie Brown. So what did you find like most effective?
Within my design for that show, it was a Theater for Young Audiences contract, but it was adults performing the roles in You're a Good Man, Charlie Brown. And since it's based on a comic strip, you definitely want bold shapes, bright colors, things that are appealing to children. But we really played with modern silhouette clothing. Usually you think of the classic Peanuts characters and the different characters in their costumes and what they would wear in the comic strip. But what we wanted to do was we actually updated it to current children's fashions of that particular age. So we looked at silhouettes, costume pieces that were for 5-year-olds all the way up to 8-year-olds, and wanted to have a nice modern shape so that the children watching our show could actually see themselves in the show and appreciate that our little Sally had little fur palms in her hair, which is what a lot of the kids are doing these days. Some of them are a little quirky. We had some fun, big, oversized shapes and patterns. That also, along with just making it visual for the kids, we were also trying to trick their eye and giving our adult actors oversized clothing to help them look more like children. So that literally the kids in the audience could directly relate and understand where they were coming from when they were singing the songs to them and bullying each other and playing with each other and just having fun on stage.
So when you saw the reaction that you got from the children, did you feel that it was all worth it in that moment, that everything was solid, or did you have to make any changes from those first times? Or?
It was completely solid for that one. That one was really good. The kids really react to the different characters. They love Snoopy. One of the things that we did with Snoopy, usually on the show, like You're a Good Man, Charlie Brown, he's pretty much in a full jumpsuit with ears, and you're pretty much making him look like a dog. But we decided to step back and make Snoopy more of a trendy fashion person that had elements that referenced dog, mostly in keeping him in black and white, in his color palette, and also having a baseball cap, but not direct animal ears. And when you're taking a risk like that, you don't know if a younger audience will go with the idea that he's the dog. And so a lot of that, we were really excited to see that the kids immediately took to it. Snoopy hangs out on top of the doghouse, plays with the dog bowl, but is literally standing up and singing to an audience. And so the kids got that jump, and it was really cool to see.
So when you create theater, is there any process of it where you do any form of trials, like where you take the costumes before anything happens just to see how a child would react to them? Or you're just pretty solid in your gig and you're just like, I'm on, I don't need to try.
Well, I wish it was that way. I wish it was that smooth all the time. It isn't always that smooth. Sometimes you have to really make sure that you are tweaking your color palette and your storylines. One of the other pieces that I did with the same company that I did with Your Good Man Charlie Brown, we actually were doing a review, I believe, of all of Gershwin music. And so it was a review where each song was different, each were different characters, and each had different costumes that were telling very specific stories. So we had to make sure that all of those costumes from one song to the next song really told the change and really showed that there was something new in front of them, even though it was the same two performers the whole time. So yeah, in that instance, we actually had to tweak some of the costumes, we had to change around some of it, because it wasn't as clear to some of the students that we were basically each time showing them a different pair of characters, even though it was the same actors.
Okay. So it seems like you've had a wonderful, and congratulations on everything you've done in your career, but a wonderful career. Could you just tell us like some of the companies that you've worked for, or some of the shows that you've worked for, that involve children for young audiences?
Sure, definitely. I worked with Inside Broadway, and that was where we had done productions of Cinderella, Your Good Man Charlie Brown, also the Gershwin Review. I've also worked with Theater Works USA, and I was a draper with them, helping to create costumes for over a decade, making and also designing for Lion Rich and the Wardrobe for them. I worked on Broadway with Cirque du Soleil's Paramore, which was a very large family-oriented show that had the kids on their feet, the parents on their feet, also very brightly colored and wacky as well.
One thing I really remember about that show, because I did have the privilege of seeing it, was the ending of the show, where there was a lot of colors. And could you just tell me like some of the thought process that went into creating a finale that comes with that?
Definitely. Within that show, I was working as part of the wardrobe team and maintaining the look of the show, but I know through conversations with the designers, the idea at the end, it sort of was a giant trampoline chase scene that was done to epic music, and they were bouncing and flipping on walls and all over top of the different buildings. But the colors of the costumes, the set themselves were more jewel tones. So you would think of secondary, richer tones. But the costumes themselves were all sort of zoot suit, striped, primary colors. So bright blue, bright yellow, bright red. And those were the ones for all of the performers that were flipping in front of all of these gorgeous jewel tones, so that visually you always saw the performer and there was always direct focus on who to look at which time. Because in a scene like that, where there are so many people bouncing and flipping and jumping all around, you need to have visual focus. And so color played a lot in that, and also the silhouette of the zoot suits and the stripes.
So when you did that show, did you ever have the privilege and treat at the time, but not necessarily with that show, but any show whatsoever, to actually get your set in an area where you could just look out and see the audience and see those kids' reactions to something that you had helped create? How did that make you feel?
It gives me a lot of joy. It's one of the things that I love about live performance. I've worked in TV, I've done some short film work. All of that comes later, but to actually see the audience reaction, that's what's the magic part of it. Working with Inside Broadway, we always do what we call our special previews. And the shows, they tour around to schools here in New York City. They do all 5 boroughs, but when we're teching our show, we actually go to an elementary school inside their auditorium, and we work the show, and we invite in classes, and we don't do a full house audience, we do a smaller audience, but we will gauge and we will see what the reactions are, and it's amazing to see what the young kids pick up on, what they don't pick up on. They will tell you if your show is too slow, if you got to pick up that pace, if you're not selling it to the back of the room, you know. You can't take for granted a younger audience thinking that they're immature or thinking that they're not going to understand sophisticated concepts or sophisticated color schemes. Not every kid's show has to be zigzags and polka dots. Like, they can actually appreciate real fabrics, real textures. One of the projects I did with TheaterWorks was a production of Lion Witch in the Wardrobe, and the Mr. and Mrs. Beaver were all made out of different colors of brown and orange plaids, and it was all patchwork to feel almost like old quilts, and that was my concept for those characters. And the children got it. Like, they get the references, they see it, they understand that it's a throwback to grandmother's blanket and different things, and they can actually digest those more sophisticated ideas, not always in the same way that you think they would, but they do. So my biggest thing is, don't feel like you have to, quote unquote, dumb it down for younger audiences. They are also just as ready to devour the sophistication and creative color palette and different silhouettes as adults are.
Do you think that for children and visual costumes, or just visuals in general, that there is a time frame at all that you need to have before you change the costume or change the colors? Or can you just ride it out like for the entire show?
A time frame? You mean to...
You know, like an ADD, like, you know, like the kids will stay interested for 10 minutes in a blue sparkle gown, and then you need to switch her to a red sparkle gown just to keep it going. Do you think there's a time frame for that?
I don't know if there necessarily is a time frame. One of the things with the costumes that we did for Your Good Man Charlie Brown, they never changed. They stayed in their same looks the entire show. But the structure of that show and the creativity of that show comes from the different songs, the different dances, what's going on stage that keeps them interactive. I don't think it's beneficial to rely on one level of theatrical technicality to keep your audience in. I think they all come together. But for me, sure, I'd rather have quick changes like that. I want to have 400 costumes in a 15-minute show, but why not? Why not? And just throwing rhinestones, it's perfect. No, I don't think there's a necessary time frame, but I think it depends on the piece.
One other question I want to just touch on, because I'm kind of fascinated by this one, is how do you think technology is affecting costumes today? And have you worked with any technology, you know, with the lighting that you were always seeing with America's Got Talent? Seems to be quite popular with that.
Completely, yeah. I actually worked on 2 seasons of America's Got Talent. That was one of those TV gigs. But actually, to mention, and especially light up costumes, I've worked with Avenue Q for the last 15 years, and I made originally for the show, I made all of Christmas Eve's clothing. The special thing about Avenue Q is that you have puppeteers on the stage that have a costume on their puppet that is all brightly colored, but the actual puppeteer is in charcoal gray, so that they sort of blend to the background. The focus is on the puppet, but within the show, there's also human characters that are full-body characters, such as this one, Christmas Eve. She's Japanese, she's amazing, and she probably makes all of her own clothes. And in the process of the show, she was getting married. And there's a wedding, and when we did it originally off-Broadway, we did it straight up, DIY, old school, Christmas lights in the skirt. She had at least 16 D batteries hanging on the inside of the skirt. It was brilliant. And then we moved to Broadway, and we added LEDs all over it. So there was a chase sequence all over her obi and her headpiece, and the whole skirt, everything lit up, and she literally became a Vegas-style costume.
Love it.
It was brilliant. Yeah, the technology definitely helps advance some of those visuals and helps give even more creative chutzpah, I don't know, spot to what's going on in the show. Unfortunately, though, you still have to have a great storyline at your core. There can only be so much magic to cover up the fact that if your show isn't there, your show isn't there.
And speaking of shows, now would be a good time for me to wrap it up. So, first, I would like to thank you so much for coming to this.
Really, yes.
It was greatly appreciated, and you're doing a lot of great things. And I always look to check in on you to see what fabulous things you're doing now. And I love your online costumes as well.
Thank you so much.
We'd like to thank everyone for watching us today here at Albright Television, and I hope you enjoyed the show. Until next time, see ya.